Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Thursday morning to you all. Hope you guys are waking up and feeling good out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. And I hope everyone's been having a great week out there so far. We got a lot of information to feed you guys in this morning's video. We're going to speak on the shot at a severe weather outbreak starting tomorrow for Friday into Saturday. There's also going to be severe weather for Sunday. But listen, I really think this is going to be a severe weather outbreak, and I'm especially concerned for Saturday for tornadoes. But damaging winds is going to be a huge risk, especially for tomorrow, and we're going to speak on everything. The first thing we'll go over is tomorrow, Friday. We'll talk about the latest information for the Storm Prediction Center as far as their outlook for tomorrow. That was issued a couple hours ago. We'll talk about some model runs. What is going to be the storm mode, the storm structure? Is it going to be, supercells, more so a line of storms? What's going to be the highest risk? What about the ingredients? We'll speak on all of that. And then we'll do the same exact thing for Saturday. We'll speak on the latest outlook. We'll go over the ingredients coming together. We'll speak on some model runs. But just know that Saturday is still a couple days away from us, and we're not in range of some of the short range models, so we can't get as detailed on the model runs for Saturday as we can maybe for tomorrow. So we'll speak on both. We'll get incredibly detailed with that information. We'll speak a little bit on Sunday. We'll talk about the blizzard part of the storm also. We'll talk about the high wind risk even outside of the severe weather area. And guys, I'm not going to be able to get you today's forecast in this video because I really think we need to hyper focus on the severe weather event. But do stay tuned. I do got you guys a Bible devotion at the very end of the video, and we'll just spend some time in the scripture, a few minutes there. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And I do want to say one thing, guys. If I don't mention your state, your city, guys, I know it makes people feel good when I say their state, and I get it, guys. But I'm going to forget to mention different states. I'm going to forget to mention different areas. Don't take any offense to it. It's not personal. But my videos already go on for 30 to 45 minutes. And trust me, if I could sit here and talk and ramble forever, I would. But it is impossible to mention every single area. So with that being said, if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So it's the latest outlook for tomorrow, for Friday. Not today, for tomorrow. So unfortunately, we did upgrade a category for certain areas. We went from an enhanced risk in the orange to a moderate risk in the red. The next risk is the final level, and that is a high risk. And hopefully we don't see that. Hopefully their confidence isn't that high on severe weather, but a moderate risk has now been issued. So let's zoom into this area. St. Louis, you're right in the heart of this. This includes a good chunk of Illinois, all the way down to western sections of Kentucky, northwestern areas of Tennessee, all the way to northeastern areas of Arkansas, the Boot Hill, Missouri, the entire eastern area of Missouri. And if I do get some directions mixed up, I might call, northwest this state, northeast that state instead. Trust me, I know my directions. It's just when you're spitting out a ton of information at one time, I tend to get my directions mixed up. It's definitely not intentional there. But this goes all the way up to just south of Davenport, and that's where it stops. Southeastern areas of Iowa include into this, but a moderate risk, level 4 out of 5. We zoom out of this. In the orange area, let's zoom one more time there. Orange area, that's an enhanced risk. Okay, so we'll start from south to north. This includes Tuscaloosa all the way down to Meridian, Jackson, up to Memphis, Jackson, both Jackson, Tennessee and Mississippi, over to Nashville. It includes a good section of a good large area of eastern Arkansas, all the way through middle areas of Missouri. Gets all the way over to Evansville. Not quite to Indianapolis, but it does include areas of southwestern Indiana, all the way up to Des Moines, Dubuque, Davenport, Cedar Rapids, and gets to just south of Rockford. So a level 3 out of 5 enhanced risk. And then the slight risk, which I'm not going to zoom into this area, but this goes all the way up into, areas of Wisconsin, southern Minnesota. It goes all the way back to Omaha, all the way down to Little Rock, includes Springfield, goes all the way down to Birmingham, Hattiesburg, all the way through Louisville, all the way through Indianapolis, and up through Chicago, even Milwaukee included this. So what's driving this? That's the big question. I want to look at wind first, because that is what's kind of driven the upgrade from an enhanced risk to a moderate risk. And it makes sense. A lot of wind energy with this, with a powerful low pressure scooting off to the northwest of this area. So once again, we'll zoom into this area. Let's zoom out a little bit more. So The pink area, 45% chance of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. Okay, but there's also a hatch risk of winds, which means there's a 10% risk of significant winds, which are winds exceeding like 70 to 75 miles per hour. 10% risk of that. That is going to cause damage. So in this pink area, you almost got a 50-50 shot of someone getting damaging winds within 25 miles of your given location. That's pretty wild stuff. St. Louis right in the heart of this. That's the moderate risk area. In the red area, 30% chance of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And you guys also have that 10% risk of winds exceeding like 70 to 75 miles per hour. Okay. If you live in that red area, that is your risk percentage. Evansville down to Memphis up to, Davenport, Des Moines. And then you got the yellow area, 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And then you also got the 10% risk of significant winds. Okay. Which, I've mentioned already about 15 times. 70 to 75 miles per hour. I tend to be repetitive, guys, but I just want you guys to understand. I love getting detailed, and I try to be personal with you guys. I don't know how people can skirt through a video like this in 8 minutes. I don't have a clue. But some people prefer that kind of stuff. But to me, I don't. I love getting detailed. But, if we speak on the tornado threat, which is what a lot of people focus in on, and listen, this could upgrade a category. Right now, if you live in this yellow area, there's a 10% risk. We might as well say this. There's a 10% risk, yes, of a tornado, but just say there's a 10% risk of strong tornadoes, EF2 or higher tornadoes within 25 miles of any given location in this yellow area. Bloomington, Burlington, St. Louis, Jefferson City, Columbia, Missouri, all the way through this section of Missouri here, down the Mississippi River, pretty much. Pretty much the entire Mississippi Valley is going to be the highlight of the severe weather threat. Memphis, 10% risk of tornadoes, strong tornadoes down to Greenwood, down to Tuscaloosa, and this really starts to happen overnight, tomorrow night, all the way down to Florence, both Jacksons, Tennessee, Mississippi, over to Evansville, 10% risk of a strong tornado. So, and listen, this won't get talked about as much, but there is a pretty high risk of hail too. So in this red area, not only is there a 30% chance of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger, there's also a 10% risk of very large hail, which is hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger. And then that yellow area, 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. And then, you even have the risk of significant hail outside of the red area. And we'll just kind of broaden this. So the risk of very large hail is there for a pretty large area. So don't ignore the hail risk with this either. So that's the breakdown for tomorrow. Now, let's look at some radar runs, and we'll look at areas further south too. So if you're in Arkansas, Tennessee, screaming at me like, dude, show us too. I got you covered. Just hang tight. This is the Euro run. Okay. And this is going to just kind of give you more of a sloppy representation of what the radar could look like, just because it isn't a high resolution kind of short range model here. But this is getting into tomorrow afternoon. I know I don't have timestamps up, so we're going to use afternoon, evening time frames. And once we get into our next video, I think we'll be able to kind of zoom into exact time frames here. But 21Zs tomorrow afternoon. We got this area convection, shower and storm activity firing out of the plains and really starting out. Very well could get strong to severe storms like in Omaha, Lincoln during this time. But as we're starting to get into, say, tomorrow evening, like sun is beginning to set, you got a 977 low here. The storm motion with these storms right here is going to be incredibly fast. And what I think you're going to have ongoing right here is probably some sort of squall line, bowing line of storms rumbling through this area. And I know all you're seeing here is greens, the oranges, the reds here, whatever it may be. But just think of this area right here is a nasty line of storms capable of producing all hazards, but especially very, very strong winds. So you keep this going, all right? And this is moving through Iowa, getting all the way up into southern areas of Minnesota, skirting into Missouri, starting to get into now like Illinois. And this is kind of late in the evening, 9, 10, 11 o'clock Central Time. And this line of storms starts to get into southwestern Wisconsin. These storms could produce very strong winds. This will be a very strong line of storms starting to get and move like through St. Louis to late tomorrow evening, starting to move through middle areas of Illinois. And then by the time we get in the middle of the night, like midnight, give or take an hour, these storms move through Chicago, start to move out of Illinois into Indiana. They start to affect areas of maybe Indianapolis down to Evansville. Boot Hill, Missouri starts to get hit. And then as we start to get into the wee hours of the morning, say Saturday morning, what's left of this line of storms? I think regardless, you're getting strong wind gusts through this area. But what's left of this line of storms? Not quite sure. I think it does begin to weaken pretty quick as we start to get closer to the morning hours of Saturday. But if we take a look at what the NAM is showing, I think it shows a great representation of what could happen. And I'm just going to zoom into this area on the NAM, and here's this line of storms that develops. And I think that this could be just a nasty line of storms. And, as we start to move into, this is like 6 p.m. tomorrow night, look at this bowing structure right here. I mean, blasting through Des Moines, this is moving through. I mean, I would venture to say that the line of storms extends all the way down into northern Arkansas. And I'm telling you that there could be some tornadoes with this too. So if there is any tornadoes with this line of storms late tomorrow evening, they are going to be very fast movers. I mean, you're not going to have a lot of time to react, guys. But, all this convection, this is getting into like just before midnight local time in Illinois. You see all these storms kind of moving through Illinois all the way across the Mississippi River. And then this is like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Look at these storms moving through Nashville, Indianapolis. How well put together will these storms be? That's a big question. And, just to kind of move it a little bit further south, which I actually did not have it pulled up, so I do apologize. I'm going to have to do this on the fly. I told you guys I had you covered down here in areas of further south in this risk area, and I did not. So let's get this in motion here. But, for my people down here and say the southern areas of this severe thunderstorm area risk tomorrow, it's kind of a conditional threat. I definitely think you're going to get some thunderstorms, but the big question to me is, do they not fire up until, say, I would say like getting closer to sunset, for example. Let's back this up one more little section. This is like tomorrow afternoon. We're seeing some blobs of green down here, but I'm not sure if thunderstorms are firing yet. Then we start to get into tomorrow evening. We start to see kind of just some yellow oranges down here along the Mississippi River, but in the Delta region. But, are they going to fire? And I think they will. I think these storms start to get vigorous, but you notice they're isolated, like this little blob, this little blob, this little blob here. Are we going to get some supercells kind of tomorrow night? Now, the low pressure is way up here. Is there enough forcing to get storms going down here? The ingredients will be there. Is there enough kind of forcing mechanism to get enough lift to get these storms going? But I say as we get later tomorrow night, I really think a severe weather threat really materializes really kind of after the sunsets tomorrow night. And I know all you're seeing is just blobs of green and yellow, but just think of those as just strong to severe thunderstorms. And as we start to get into the wee hours of the morning, Saturday morning, I mean, we could already have strong to severe thunderstorms ongoing across northern Alabama, middle Tennessee, up into western Kentucky. And I think there's a chance that we wake up Saturday morning to already just, you see this down here? Let's just kind of go down here a little bit. This is Saturday morning, like 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. We already got this line of storms kind of ongoing, even some convection right here across Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Alabama. And all these, could already be setting the stage of what's already going to be a nasty day for Saturday, which we'll get into here in a second. But just to go over the ingredients, we'll spend a little bit less time. We'll kind of cruise through this fast. Kinematics is wind energy. How is your upper wind pattern? Does it support the wind energy needed for a severe weather event? You got kinematics, wind energy, thermodynamics, your surface moisture, cape levels, and temperatures, and all that stuff. Okay, this is the low-level jet, 12Z, Friday, tomorrow morning. You got this low-level jet screeching at 50 to 60 knots. I mean, basically interstate speed. And we start to get into Friday afternoon. This is when that low pressure begins to get close to areas of the Midwest. And so we got winds screaming in the upper levels of the atmosphere about 4 to 6,000 feet up in the air over St. Louis, areas of the Midwest at about 55, 60, 65 knots. I mean, so, winds about a mile above your head are going at about 75, 80, 70 miles per hour. It's producing a lot of wind energy. It's also pulling up a lot of low-level moisture up into this area. But I'm not sure if it'll get there in time to really get a much more supportive thermodynamic atmosphere going. But as you know, as we start to get into Friday evening, this is where the big concern for damaging winds comes as your low-level jet begins to get even stronger, like pushing 70 knots, 80, 85 miles per hour in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Well, I would say the low levels of the atmosphere, 4,000 to 6,000 feet up. And then, as we get into the evening, look at this low-level jet raging across areas of the mid-Mississippi Valley, the Midwest. And I think that this will be creating a high wind risk across areas of the Ohio Valley, even at the surface, even though this is 850 millibars, 5,000 or so feet up in the air. A lot of wind energy cruising through this region. Okay, and we'll stop it here. And then our next feature comes to the table. All this southerly flow that I just showed you is going to yank up dew points that support severe weather. Now, what I'll tell you is you're not going to have a lot of low-level moisture that supports a thermodynamic, a surface moisture atmosphere for severe weather. Dew points only in the 50s, but that'll get the job done. The thing that I'm watching up here is there's cold air aloft, which when you have a differences in temperature, the more of a difference in temperature you have in a smaller amount of area in the atmosphere, that increases what you call your lapse rate. So when you have that difference in temperatures, that actually increases your storm field, your CAPE levels. And you have that up here, even though your surface moisture really isn't that supportive for severe weather. But down here it is. You just lack forcing to really get a true severe weather event, I would say an outbreak potential to unfold. That's why the highest severe weather threat's kind of in this area where you had the best overlapping of both. But you still get this slither. I mean, deep moisture down here in the Western Gulf states down here begins to rise. But do you have enough lift to get the thunderstorms going with the low pressure way up here? But surface moisture certainly there. And then we take it all the way into Saturday morning, and it definitely supports it. The thing that I mentioned about the CAPE levels is if you look at this and we look at, this is Friday afternoon. I mean, CAPE levels all the way up here into the upper Midwest are over 1,000 joules per kilogram. And it's because of your favorable lapse rates. The differences in temperatures above your head in a short amount of space create some instability, if you will. And that really gets some storm fuel going up in here. Down here, this is mainly just driven off the fact that you got better surface moisture. That drives up your CAPE levels too. So this is going to fuel that line of storms to develop and sweep across the Midwest that we just broke down and talked about. And there remains a lot of fuel down here. The convection eats up all that, storm fuel up here. But down here in the deep south, this is why I'm worried about overnight supercells and storms for the western deep south, because you're still going to have tons of surface moisture as a cold front does not clear this area, because we do have another low pressure that develops, and then that leads us into our severe weather threat for Saturday. So a lot of fuel that we're waking up to for Saturday morning. Now, I will tell you, the wind threat is certainly there across the Midwest. As we're moving through tomorrow's severe weather threat. Now, this is just what the National Weather Service is saying, but some of this is just non-thunderstorm winds. But when the National Weather Service is going for over 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts, I would take notice to that. But you see the Midwest, you see this area right here, highlighting, low pressure kind of moves through this area. This whips in a lot of wind energy through here. And sure enough, through this corridor right here, not only are you going to have damaging winds with the actual line of storms that kind of sweeps through this area, but even just all the wind energy brought to you by the low pressure is going to sweep through this area, and you're going to get those 40 to 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts through the region. Definitely got to pay attention to this. And if you look at the NAM, which is going to overdo it, but we'll look at it. The NAM really picks up on that line of storms sweeping through this area and really just has a big time damaging wind threat through the southern plains all the way up through the Midwest, through the Ohio Valley, all the way between Friday morning, and let's just take it all the way through about Saturday morning. So tornado threat will definitely be there. And if you kind of look at let's look at the significant tornado parameter. This tells us the higher the number, the better the ingredients for tornadoes. Doesn't mean you're always going to get a tornado, but you can see how the significant tornado parameter spikes in this area. Okay, that line of storms forms, eats up all the ingredients for tornadoes in this area. But if you notice, the ingredients for tornadoes are high down here across the, down the Mississippi River, basically. But are you going to get forcing for thunderstorms down here in that region? I mean, I think you will. So, yeah, big day tomorrow. So 20 minutes deep, and we're just getting done with Friday. Let's get into Saturday. Listen, I'm concerned about Saturday. Just my personal opinion, I think Saturday has all the potential to be a tornado outbreak. So let's speak on this. This is the outlook for day 3 for Saturday. We have a moderate risk for areas of the Deep South. So Jackson, Mississippi, over to Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Montgomery, Meridian, down Interstate 65 to Mobile, Gulfport, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, all these areas, Hattiesburg, I'm not sure if I mentioned that. Level 4 out of 5 risk of severe weather. Let's zoom out a little bit. In the orange area, level 3 out of 5 risk of severe weather. There's going to be a debate out there in the weather community. Does this have a chance to go to a high risk, level 5 out of 5? I think it does. I'm sure there's always some things holding it back. It takes a lot of confidence on a true significant severe weather outbreak from the Storm Prediction Center for them to drop a high risk. But I think that the potential is there for us to get that out of this. I'm not sure if we will, though. Enhanced risk, level 3 out of 5, goes, let's start west to east. Goes all the way back to areas of Louisiana, all the way through Greenwood, Mississippi, Tupelo, Florence, Huntsville, Alabama, up to Cumberland Plateau. And these areas, Chattanooga, all the way up to Nashville, all the way just south of Bowling Green, includes a few counties in southern areas of Kentucky, includes a very small section of southwestern North Carolina, very small corner, the far northwest corner of South Carolina, back through the entire western half of Georgia, including Atlanta, all the way down to the panhandle of Florida, Pensacola, Panama City. But listen, I could see this expanding a little bit further to the east in time. Now let's broaden this a little bit more. Slight risk extends. Let's zoom into this all the way up to Cleveland, Ohio, Akron, Columbus, Cincinnati, all the way over to Charleston, West Virginia, Lexington, Louisville, pretty much the entire state of Kentucky. Slight risk, level 2 out of 5, through the Greenville, Spartanburg area, western areas of the Carolinas, Asheville, including Boone, Johnson City, Tri-Cities region, all the way cutting through areas of middle Georgia and areas of the panhandle of Florida. And it does get back to Alexandria, Memphis, and this will probably be really driven off what happens in the morning. But what's driving this? Guys, at day 3, all we know is that there's a risk of severe weather, all severe weather. They really fine-tune this as we get into day 2, which is kind of like what they did for Friday's outlook, if you stay tuned, if you watch that portion of the video. So all we know for the moderate risk is that, hey, there's a 45% risk of any severe weather within 25 miles in the given location. There's a 10% risk of that severe weather being significant, which means that, and any severe weather means tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds. So 10% means that you got a 10% risk of this being a strong tornado, EF2 or higher. Damaging winds, significant, means 70, 75 miles per hour, 10% risk of that. Large hail, 2-inch in diameter or larger. Okay, so what is this going to be when we wake up? My bet is that we will probably start off with a 15% risk of tornadoes and strong tornadoes, 10% risk of strong tornadoes, and you're probably going to have a pretty high wind threat with this too. Now, when you're looking at this, the red area, that is a 30% chance of any severe weather, 10% risk of that being significant, what I just broke down. All right, then you zoom back out. In the yellow area, slight risk, that's that 15% risk of any severe weather. Okay, but I think that the threat for a tornado outbreak is quite high down here, and I'm very concerned about. I don't know. I just got, guys. I don't try to hype things up. I hopefully for my longtime viewers, of course, if you're a first time viewer, then you don't know me. But for the people that's been tuning in for a while, you guys know that I don't hype things up. I am concerned about this setup. I'm going to talk about why here. Here's why. So and I'm going to show areas further north too. Just hang with me. Let's start with the Deep South. Here's why. So, Saturday morning, we're already waking up to probably a lot of shower and storm activity. The question is, Saturday morning, is this area down here beginning to clear? Are we getting, a clearing into this circled area? If we are, then it's not going to be good. What's going on is a surface low is kind of cruising through this area, and it's cruising pretty close, which means it's going to be a highly favored climatic environment. And with the Gulf right there, you're going to have a lot of surface moisture to play with in this setup. Okay, so we start to get into Saturday, like mid-morning. Already explosive thunderstorms ongoing across Mississippi, northern Alabama. But you see this sector right here that's clear? That's concerning. Now, we don't know exactly how the storms are going to be, but as we're getting into midday Saturday, all these storms up here in Tennessee, Mississippi are already probably going to be strong to severe. But then we got to watch for any convection that gets going in this area. And I'm really looking forward to when we can get into short range model guides and see what it's showing. We're at the tail end of the NAM. We can look at some things, but just when you see all this blobs of green, yellow, orange, just know that they could all be strong to severe thunderstorms. And we get into Saturday afternoon, the energy still cruising through Mississippi, getting into Alabama. And I really think Alabama could have a rough Saturday afternoon, Saturday night. And then all this storm activity begins to get into Georgia. And we could have one round out ahead that gets into the upstate of South Carolina and western areas of North Carolina. And then we kind of have the main round back here. And this is getting into the middle of the night. I really don't think this will be one clean sweep through, meaning you get a line of storms and you're done in areas of Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. I think you could have multiple rounds. In fact, discussions from these individual national weather services talk about that. They talk about the fact that there could be multiple rounds. So you keep going here, and we're getting into like 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. I know you're just seeing, like I said, orange, blobs of yellow, blah, blah, blah. But this could be a nasty line of storms right here, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, Sunday morning. And then we're getting into, when the sun's starting to come up Sunday morning and the storms are moving through Georgia, South Carolina, etc., points north. Okay, and then we get into Sunday. Now, to look a little bit further north, same thing. We start off with probably some sort of broken line of storms across this region right here. And then we start to get into midday Saturday. And as a surface low is getting going, probably somewhere, I don't know, somewhere into here. Low pressure, deep low pressure is going through this area. All this green, yellow, and orange you're seeing is probably going to have a lot of wind energy with it. And you're going to get a slither of favorable thermodynamic surface moisture that makes it all the way up here into the Tennessee Valley. So we're starting to get into, come on, work for me. You've been doing so good. There we go. Saturday afternoon. All this activity you see getting into Kentucky, maybe it isn't like a strong or severe storm, but you're going to get very strong winds with this. But this could be strong to severe storms up here in Tennessee. We're down here into Tennessee. And there's the low popping up right there. Could be a sub 990 low. So with a low pressure right here, okay, you're going to probably be getting a ton of strong winds into this area right here. And I'm very concerned for eastern Tennessee, up into eastern Kentucky, areas of West Virginia, all the way up the spine of the Appalachian Mountains for a high wind threat, even outside of the severe thunderstorm risk, because you got a low pressure right here. It's not up here, okay? It's right down here, moving across this area. And I'm telling you, this brings its own wind energy with it, and a ton of it, especially when it's that close. So, you continue to keep going here, and you're probably going to get, after any kind of weekend line of storms stops in like Indiana, Ohio Saturday morning, you're probably going to get another line of storms that moves through later Saturday night. And, look at these storms just moving through the western side of the Appalachian Mountains and eventually into the mountains. And yeah, and I know this, it just looks kind of splotchy. It's just the Euro. We're not in range of all the short range guidance like the HRRR model run and stuff like that. But this could all be strong to severe action. Okay. So, just speaking on the energy itself, this is what we just broke down for Friday. This is for Saturday. So waking up Saturday morning, you have the lingering low-level jet from the surface low to the north. So you're already getting A lot of flow in the low levels rumbling through the Ohio Valley, the Midwest. This is creating strong winds even at the surface. But as we're starting to get into, say, Saturday afternoon, that secondary low develops. This brings a new low-level jet into the picture, and all of a sudden we get this low-level jet pushing 50, 60, 70 knots over this area. This will mix to the surface in the form of probably 30, 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts, even outside of the storms, in my opinion. But this will feed a lot of wind energy into this severe weather threat, and this continues. And I'm telling you, remember I circled eastern Tennessee and just everything surrounding that area? Guys, on the Euro, this is over an 80 to 90 knot low-level jet riding over this area. That's even strong for an upper-level, mid-level jet. So these are winds over, these are winds, guys, pushing like, I don't know, well over interstate speeds over this region. A ton of wind energy rumbling through this area. Your low-level jet could get excess of like 90 to 100 miles per hour in this area. So this is going to funnel a lot of strong winds to the surface in this area. That's not Mitch saying, and I saw some comments on some social media posts on Facebook saying, man, Mitch said there's going to be 100 mile per hour wind gusts. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that you could easily get 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts through this area of Kentucky, Tennessee, and even northern Alabama, northern Georgia as we're getting into Saturday evening. And this moves right over the mountains, guys. And I'm concerned because obviously the mountains extend. Remember, the mountains extend further out. A lot of people want to do all these conspiracy theories about Helene and why it just targeted western North Carolina. Folks, the reason it hit in western North Carolina is because the remnants of the low-level jet moved right over western North Carolina. So you got to remember, western North Carolina has mountains that are 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 feet tall in some cases, even 6,000 feet tall. Your low-level jet sits at about 4,000 to 6,000 feet up in the air. So if you live in a location that's over 4,000 feet up in the air, you literally live in the low-level jet. So some of these winds that are reflecting at, 60, 70, 80, 90 miles per hour at, say, 5,000 feet, if you just happen to live in the high country in North Carolina, well, guess what? You're going to get hurricane force wind gust up there. And this is kind of a similar setup. I'm not saying we're going to get Helene all over again, but I'm saying take this wind threat across this area very serious, across all the Appalachian Mountains. Okay? Now, I know I didn't show the low-level jet for the deep south, but there's going to be a lot of energy. I will show you dew points too. Plenty of surface moisture. There's no point in harping on this for very long. You got dew points in the 60s. They'll probably be even higher than this. Plenty of moisture from the Gulf, and you can see how literally it's getting pulled out the Gulf into the deep south because of this low-level jet. And then, plenty of moist air all the way into Georgia and the Carolinas as we're starting to get into Sunday morning. Okay, and then you look at this too, even the slither of moisture all the way up into the Mid-South, Tennessee Valley, all the way into the Ohio Valley. Dew points will temporarily probably spike all the way into the 60s into southern Ohio, Indiana, as we're getting into Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. So there's definitely enough moisture in the atmosphere. And plenty of fuel that we're waking up to. Guys, we're waking up to over 2,000 joules per kilogram in Storm Cape for the deep south of Mississippi already for Saturday morning. Now, I saw a question on my YouTube comments like, Mitch, why does it look like the Cape goes down? Well, just remember that you don't need 2,000 joules per kilogram in this atmosphere to get severe weather. 200, 300 to 500 joules per kilogram in Cape storm fuel will get the job done when you have such a favorable climatic environment. It will definitely get the job done. So we get anything over 500, you could get a tornado outbreak. So this is getting into 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon Saturday. You still got plenty of fuel, guys, in the atmosphere. And even though you're not seeing a lot into Saturday evening, there's still enough fuel in the atmosphere. In fact, it spikes again late Saturday evening across like Mississippi, Alabama. And that's why I think the severe weather threat is not just going to stop Saturday night. I think it goes on into the overnight hours of Saturday night into Sunday morning. And even that storm fuel gets all the way up into this area, not as much, but certainly energy in the atmosphere. So just to kind of show you and talk a little bit about impacts, this is the very end of the NAM model. Not always the best thing to look at in the long range, but I want to show you something. So this is at hour 60. This takes us all the way out to about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon Central Time. We already got thunderstorms ongoing early in the afternoon in Arkansas, Louisiana, northern Mississippi, and Alabama. This kind of supports what the Euro shows. But I want you to look at this wide open sector where hardly nothing's going on, except some showers right in here. Hardly nothing's going on in this area. This is where your atmosphere can destabilize fast. It's not going to take much. And in response, your significant tornado parameters in that same time frame is, going off the charts, spiking dramatically, 9s, 10s. So the higher this number, the better the ingredients for tornadoes in the atmosphere. They are off the charts in this area. And this is only out to about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Saturday afternoon. So, if you look at, say, the wind gust, and we'll talk more on that when we get a little bit closer. But we speaking on the wind gust, this goes out between now and about Saturday evening. They're already calling for, they're already calling for hurricane force wind gusts in the Smokies. Very strong winds into southwest North Carolina, and I think we're going to get a high wind event across this area. I hope I'm wrong about this because I've been honking the horn at very strong winds for the last few days across, this entire area. And maybe this doesn't verify at the surface as very strong winds, but I'm just very concerned about this area. Hopefully it's all concern for nothing and nothing ends up happening. I just want you guys to be aware. But strong winds through this area. If you look at, say, the, I'm losing my train of thought here. The Euro model run, it really doesn't show the winds really getting bad until Saturday night. For example, after you get past OOZ Saturday and get into the overnight hours all the way into Sunday morning, this is when it really shows very, very strong wind gusts across this area. A 50, 60, 70 mile per hour wind gust at the surface based off the Euro. So just very concerned about strong winds in this area, guys. But there's a severe weather threat still for Sunday. 15% risk of any severe weather if you live in the yellow area. We are still watching this, and just to kind of zoom into some of these areas. Obviously I live in central South Carolina. I've had a lot of questions, and what I can tell you is there's probably going to be a line of storms working through this area right here. But there's a chance that, kind of like the last severe weather event, this kind of clears through in a favorable time where no storms can really fire up later on in the afternoon. But this goes all the way up to just about the border of New York and PA. And we are certainly going to have a line of storms sweeping through this area. I'm not going to go deep into the ingredients here, but, we're getting into midday Sunday. Look at this line of storms as far north as Buffalo, Rochester, New York. And we're definitely going to have probably kind of a attached and in some cases detached line of storms sweeping through. Now, I do want to watch for additional development in areas in the mid-Atlantic, even upper southeast into the northeast. This is like Sunday evening. These storms are still riding along and just east of the I-95 corridor. So we'll certainly watch. There's still a nasty line of storms ongoing across eastern North Carolina as we're getting into late Sunday night. So that's something to watch here if the system begins to slow down. And if it pops that low faster, then we're probably going to have more ingredients for severe weather. That's not a good color. We're going to have ingredients to support some more severe weather if we get that low. Another third low that pops off like through here, but it shows it popping off really as the entire system is beginning to exit the eastern seaboard. So wind threat is going to be significant regardless as we're getting into Sunday. I think we're going to get a high wind event across the entire eastern U.S. So, these are predicted wind gusts based off the Euro. Shows it's very strong wind gust across the area. Trying to save enough energy for breaking down this blizzard threat, and I am running low on time. But speaking on the blizzard side of things, and we're going to speak on the high winds also because it needs a lot of attention as we're going to have a significant wind event, non-thunderstorm wind event across the southern plains. But speaking on the blizzard, this is going to be incredibly strong low pressure like we've mentioned many times. So as we're getting into, this is tomorrow evening, some rain begins to switch to some snow across the Dakotas. But this really gets going as we start to get to, say, Saturday morning. And I would venture to say that, some of this pink you see here is probably snow, but definitely could be some freezing rain, which is what the pink means. But this is probably going to be a quick hitting corridor of heavy snow with a 977 low just chilling in southern areas of Minnesota. This is going to be an all out blizzard right into this area. Let's kind of draw on this a little bit. Right into here, not the best color. Let's use this. Blizzard will be ongoing right in here most likely, and I'm wondering if they are going to put blizzard warnings up for this area. But this continues, we start to get into, say, midday Saturday. Heavy snow continues to fall through this area, but it kind of moves in. Rain switches to snow, then the system moves out. But this is going to be a quick hitting blizzard. So I kind of go back to this time frame right here. It's midday Saturday, and we look at winds, and look, this is between now and Saturday evening. We're going to get, let's draw on this, very strong winds in the same area where rain is going to switch to snow. We're talking 40, 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts. So, like I said, I do think they'll probably put winter storm watches up soon, but I really think they'll put blizzard warnings up for this area. Might not, but I don't think a whole lot of snow is going to fall in this area. In fact, this is the National Weather Service forecast here. Between now and Saturday evening, good 2 to as much as 6-inch snowfall event for this region, but it's just this isolated little area. It's not a little area, but you get what I'm saying. Areas of extreme the eastern Dakotas, and then western to northwestern areas in Minnesota. Now, this could uptrend. Very strong winds and this very wet snow that will fall here, so be aware of that. Then, you look at the damaging wind risk, guys, down here to the south. This is a storyline probably not being talked about as much, but let me know if I got anybody tuning in from western Texas, areas of New Mexico. But the southern high plains, as a low, same low we've been talking about, as a low right in here sort of develops and then strengthens and heads on out that way, it'll kick up very strong winds through this area. So we're going to get very, very strong winds. I'm talking about 60, 70, 80. Heck, somebody can get a 90 mile per hour wind gust through this area. It's going to be a dry desert wind. So we are likely going to get a big time fire danger through this area as this dry winds, because you're not going to get any thunderstorms down here most likely, is going to whip through this area. And because of that dry wind, you have an extreme fire danger risk for areas in the pink with the red dashes going in between it. So this is quite significant, guys. This is kind of a storyline not being talked about as much, but it needs to be talked about. So there it is. But to kind of round off this video, guys, and I thought that this scripture fits well for people that really suffer from storm anxiety. But to kind of read in the Bible a little bit, and, a lot of people know this one, but this is Isaiah. So Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10 says, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will hold on to you with my righteous right hand." So, I know a lot of people that's tuning in definitely suffer from the storm anxiety, but it says in Scripture, do not fear. Now, just because it says that doesn't mean that we're just going to be able to snap our fingers and, all of a sudden all of our fear and anxiety goes away. But I do encourage you guys to really read that Scripture and read that verse. And when you get scared of something and have anxiety over something like storms that we're going to get over the next couple of days, and just really pray and talk to God constantly. I do it a lot. I've said this before. I do it going to work and going home from work. I'm a guy that I don't need the radio on. I just kind of, in a way, you can say you're talking to yourself, but honestly, I'm talking to God. So I'm not talking to myself. I'm talking to Him like He's right beside me in the passenger seat. So, just constantly talk to Him. Surround yourself around people that, are going to make you feel better about the situation, but keep it real too. But, at the same time, do things that are going to make you feel more safe. And that's why, there's professionals out there that, have these outlooks for you guys just to be aware. And, that's why I get so deep into the details of things. I want you guys to understand what's going on, what's driving all this stuff. It's not as simple as saying, hey, There's going to be a tornado in your neighborhood. So just I honestly think, and I've read this in the comments, and I'm just going to relate the scripture to what we're talking about with the weather. I honestly think, and I've had people in the comments say this, once you understand the weather a little bit more, it makes some of that fear and anxiety go away. And like I said, I've read people say that in the comments. And so, I would take the time to maybe understand what gives you so much fear and anxiety. And that actually, might help you with it. But definitely lean on God, pray to Him. He's got us. He's got us covered. He does. And, He's not going to put us through any storm that we're not capable of getting out of. Just remember that. It might stink. It might suck, but He's going to get us out of it. You just got to have faith and allow Him to work in your life. God bless all y'all. Stay safe. And we'll most likely have a video tonight. God bless.